Guys, we're back for another exciting episode of the hashtag Wednesday Match Play, and I am pumped for tonight's guest. And I say that all the time, but tonight I am really excited because this is like a groundbreaking, monumental episode of the hashtag Wednesday Match Play. For the first time, I believe, I need to go back and check my records, but for the first time, we have now had a father-son tag team on this show. So a few weeks ago, we had this guy's son on the show talking about his role on the web.com tour and all the stuff that he's done. But tonight we're getting down to the nitty gritty, talking about golf as a whole and golf writing. And this guy has done a lot. He has been published in a slew of things, whether it's websites, blogs. I get the morning read delivered to my inbox every morning. Just today, good timing, had an article from this guy, and I am just so excited to learn more about him. I could spend a ton of time talking about what he's done, what he's accomplished, but let's welcome Gary Van Sickle to the show. And I just am pleased to meet you, sir. Thank you for coming on the show.
Well, it's a groundbreaking episode, sort of in the way that Property Brothers are groundbreaking, where two brothers work together, and this is a father-son combo. So maybe they should be episode 101.
That would be fun. And I'm going to also raise a challenge to both you and your son. So we have to see who's going to get the most views. So his episode's doing pretty good, but I'm going to put that challenge out. I'm going to actually email him and say, hey, you got to beat your dad. So, get to sharing. And you've got a few more Twitter followers than him. So
I probably got a lot more Twitter followers than he does. So maybe I win that just by accident. But, as far as describing who I am, what I did, I was a sports writer at the Milwaukee Journal. That's a newspaper, and a newspaper for most people out there who probably don't know, is a item that's words and pictures that are printed on crappy paper, and it's delivered to your doorstep every morning. Or then the Milwaukee Journal was an afternoon paper. I know. What is that?
Whoa.
You don't really need to know anymore. It's an antique. Was covered a little of everything there, the University of Wisconsin, football and basketball. In the summer, I wound up covering golf. It's kind of how I got into golf. And after about 10 years there, my sports editor got stolen away by Golf Digest, needed an editor to run Golf World, a weekly golf magazine. A piece of pictures and words, and it's mailed to you. I know such a thing doesn't exist anymore, but it's a curiosity. It was weekly. It was kind of the Bible of golf. So I started covering golf tournaments, PGA Tour around the country, and over into Europe for another 8 or 10 years, and then Sports Illustrated started a weekly golf magazine inside Sports Illustrated. It was let in; you couldn't tell these pages had been added, but about 500,000 of them got it, and it was really geared at just people who were golf nuts. They didn't want everybody to get it, so I did that for 20 years. They had to hire basically a separate staff to produce that. In the last 4 or 5 years, 6 years, the number of issues of the golf section kind of declined from like 45 down to 38, down to 32, and then the last 2 years was like 12 and 8. So the end, I knew the end was near, and then they dropped the whole thing. They eliminated staff, including me, because they didn't need a golf section. And of course, Sports Illustrated got sold. Now they're publishing every other week, so they're. And the people that bought them, Meredith, are trying to resell SI. So it's an unwanted property, and they're out of golf. And I'm kind of basically a freelance writer, a hired gun. I'm available if you need something. If you want to write something, if your son needs help with his homework, for the right money, I'll help him out. Essays, I'm good at that. So I write for Morning Read, a daily golf newsletter that gives you 1 or 2 stories a day that you're not going to get anywhere else in golf. And then you get all the day's news and nuggets, and you can read the whole thing on your phone in 8 or 10 minutes is the idea. And a friend of mine started that when he was publisher of Golf Week magazine, and that went down the tubes, got sold to Gannett, and they got rid of everybody there. So he started that, and that's kind of the project. So I'm still have my hand in as golf writer, going around the country. I'm picking my spots now. I go to the majors or the tournaments I like. I went to Bay Hill. I went to Tampa for the Valspar. I go to the Players, just a few things. But as president of the Golf Writers Association of America, I feel like I should keep pretending to be a golf writer while I'm serving that 2-year sentence as president. So it just goes to show there's 2 guys that prove anybody in America can be elected president. I'm one of them. I think you know who the other one is. So that's where I am. You
That
don't
is,
have to call me Mr. President. That's okay.
okay, I'll refrain
But
from
when I
that.
come into the room, you should stand up.
So great. Now, not only are you a golf writer, you're also a scratch golfer. And as we alluded to, your son plays on the web.com tour. He was on this show earlier this season. That was an awesome conversation, just a ton of great content there. What was his childhood like, and when did you kind of know that he was going to be a competitive golfer? I mean, did you train him to get to that point, or did he just pick it up at an early age because of you and your role in the world of golf?
Yeah, he was just a good athlete. He had great hand-eye. He was a tremendous hitter in baseball, really good baseball player. He kind of tweaked his arm, I guess, in Little League, although he covered it up pretty well. I didn't really know. But he played that. He played soccer. Never played. He was a good basketball player. He has one of those moments, and I'm sure he told you about it. He probably even gave you the YouTube.com address for the video, but he got in late in the game against his high school arch rival and late in the season. And at the tie game at the buzzer, he makes a three-pointer to win the game. The crowd pours onto the court, almost kills them. And they got into the playoffs because of that win. So that was a pretty sweet thing. And I've forgotten what your question was. Oh, he played golf when he was a kid. I know my wife found it was a Louise Suggs 5-wood. It was a persimmon head. It was painted this weird green. It wasn't forest green, but it was kind of like pea green, but I can't describe it. And so I cut it down to like an absurd length, and he's 2.5. And I go to the range to hit balls. He wanted to do something, you want to do what your dad did. So he starts swinging this 2.5. At 2.5, he starts swinging this 5-wood at the range. Oh my God. I don't remember him ever whiffing. He usually hit them. And as far as I remember, I think he hit them all up in the air. He would stop action on the range because people would look down, and this 2.5-year-old's nice compact swing would hit this 5-wood and would go, 30, 40 yards, because that's how far he's little. And they were just, and he didn't miss them. And like, wow. But he was just a normal kid growing up, and he played the sports. He was good at everything. Really, the difference came when he finally gave up baseball after his freshman year of high school. All that time in the summer from baseball went to golf, and he made quantum leaps each year. And I think it was in his junior year of high school, he told one of the teachers, I want to be a professional golfer. And we heard that from a teacher, and we're like, what? That was news to us. But, yeah, somewhere in there, I got him a new club one year, a new driver. I think it was a blue-headed Callaway. And all of a sudden, he went from 10 yards behind me to 15 yards ahead of me. And then after that, it turned into a Walmart. He's a Walmart. He's a big hitter, the llama. And, so it's hard to say. He wanted to pursue it, so he went to college, but we really didn't know. And I think for me, the time where I thought this guy, had something special was he was in a U.S. Open qualifier in Milwaukee while he's in college. I went there, and he wound up in a playoff with two other guys. And the first hole was like not a weird par 4, but he hit this. He pull hooked this 4-wood off the tee. He was laying up, and he pull hooks this thing over in the trees, and he had nothing. I mean, there was a kind of they dig a little well around a new tree. There was like a inch depression around this tree. He was in that, so he had to get it up over this rim to get it out. But he had a partially restricted backswing, and ahead of him were more trees. There was no opening. It was like a Phil Mickelson shot. He saw a shot. I didn't see it. He had to hit it out over this berm under the next tree, but there was a pond that went across the fairway. He had to hit it across the pond. And I'm looking at that. I don't even see how it's possible. And he's asking me what I thought. And it's like, well, I don't see it. He thought I should I chip out? And I said, but his chip out was kind of blocked. You're in a playoff with two other guys. At least one of them is going to make a par. I didn't see a chip out shot either. So I said, well, if you see a shot, try it. But it was the greatest shot I've ever seen him hit. I don't know how he did it. He hit the shot. It went under the tree, over the berm, under the tree, over the water. He gets it up in the bunker by the green. It was one of those weird bunkers that actually slopes off right into the lake. So, but they had marked it. So he's in the water because it was raining at this point, by the way. I didn't mention that. The water had come up into the bunker past the hazard line. So so now he's like, well, should I play the ball out of the water, which is half submerged, or should I take a drop and it's going to plug in the sand? And I said, well, have you ever practiced hitting the ball out of the water? He's like, no. I think you ought to drop it. He says, but it's going to plug. Well, at least you've had that shot before in your life. So he does that grudgingly, gets it out. He has a long bunker shot. He got it on. He still had 40 feet. And the two other guys were on the green, but they were like 45 feet. And both those guys putted. One guy left it 5 feet short. The other guy left it like 3 feet. So he's got this putt. He puts his ball down. I go to help him line it up. And he goes, oh, no, I know this putt. I've got this. Like, what? He stood up. He got it. He poured it in like he knew he was going to make it because apparently he did. And the other one guy misses his par putt. The other guy makes his. But the par, that was the moment where that was like when I said, that was amazing. That was a competitor. You know, that was like when you have the ball and you have to make the 3-pointer to buzzer. Well, he just did it on three shots in a row. So that's when I said, you know, just telling that story, I kind of just got goosebumps right now. But that's when I said, wow, maybe that there's something there. And he wound up winning the playoff to get to the U.S. Open sectional qualifying. Didn't get in the Open that year, but that was a moment. He was in college. It's like, you know, in his first college tournament, he finished second right out of the gate as a freshman. And they were like, so it was fun. It was fun. You know, it was fun to have a reason to watch golf, and it's fun to have a reason to watch any sport. But it's been fun watching them.
That's really, really cool. And I did not hear the story of the buzzer beater. I don't recall hearing that, but I'm so focused on golf. That's
hard to believe because it's on YouTube. You go to YouTube and look up Pine Richland, something in North Allegheny, and the funniest part was it was on local cable TV, and it just so happens the guys who announced the game, the play-by-play guy, was his golf coach at high school.
That's awesome.
The other guy was like the junior high basketball coach who he had played for. So partisan, not at all. So when he makes this shot, it was a bad camera angle. The crowd was standing up. The crowd blocked the view at an angle. All you could see of his shot was his hands releasing the ball. So he makes it. It hits the rim and goes in. I mean, a semi-swish. And being true professionals that the golf coach and the other guy were, was them screaming and cackling. And they were going, I mean, it was. You didn't really ever hear Jim Nantz do that when somebody scored. So it couldn't be any less professional. And then the people come on, and if you know where to look, you can see my son. He was actually the first one out of the crowd to go shake hands with the other team. But he was concerned about, you know, getting knocked down and trampled because they were nuts. But then they went and played a really good team in the playoffs and got smoked by 40. He never even got in the game. And he didn't want to get in the game because there's a bunch of guys that he couldn't play with. So.
Now, you have had 7 hole-in-ones in your career. Any of those mean more than another? And do you remember one more than any of the other ones?
It sounds callous to say no, but they're all fun. You know, I had one where I missed the green with a 5-iron. It was a new course in Massachusetts. It was the worst of modern golf design. I hit a 5-iron and I missed. I had time to, you know, hit the hillside, kick left onto the green, and the club manager had just had time to say, "Hey, that could." And before he could say go in, it rolled in and went in. So I missed the green and made a hole-in-one. Then I think I doubled the next hole, so I played 2 holes at even par. I guess the most unusual one, the first one, I had moved to Milwaukee, been there a couple of years, playing at Brown Deer, which later hosted the Greater Milwaukee Open. That was my home course. It was a Milwaukee County course. They hosted the National Public Links a few years earlier. It was a pretty good course, except it was kept in municipal course conditions. But it's a 185-yard hole. I hit a 4-iron. I knocked it in. This was like 1997 or so. And I probably had played, 20 rounds there, and I'd never broken 80 there. So now with this hole-in-one, I don't know where I was, but I'm totally breaking 80 today. Well, the 18th hole is a par 5. You have to drive par 5 with water in the landing area, and it's kind of a little bit uphill, not too much. but the water was like right in between the go zone or the not go zone. This was in the day of persimmon wood. I mean, it was about depending on where the tee was, it was about a 215-yard carry. That doesn't sound like much now. Let's go back in time 40 years and try a persimmon driver and see what you think about it. So I decided, well, it was 50-50 normally when I played there whether to go for it. Because if you didn't go for it, you had to really wind up having a third shot of like 180 yards uphill to a blind green. So today it's like, well, I'm breaking 80 here, so I'm laying up. I'm just going to take a 6-iron and swing easy. I swing easy, and I nuked this 6-iron. I mean, I don't know what happened, but it went in the middle of the pond. I must have hit it 190 yards in a fly. I don't know how I could do that. So now I'm ticked off. So I drop a ball down there, and it's an all beat up area. I hit a 3-wood, and I blocked that way right. Now I'm in the tree. So now I'm really mad. And so I was like, well, I'm going to hit a recovery shot. So I do the recovery try. It hits a tree. I do another one. I hit the tree. Now it's pinball. And I finally get up in the green. And so I'm trying to make my 15-footer, and I gun it 3-4 feet by. I missed that one. So now I've got it. So I'm furious. I'm counting them up. It's a 10. I made a 1 and a 10, and that with a hole in one. So I'm the only guy who made a hole in one. Not only did I not buy it, I don't remember who I was playing with. Not only did I not buy anybody a drink, but I went home mad. I mean, mad. I went home mad. I wasn't able to enjoy that hole in one at all. And the great part, I mean, the silver lining of the whole thing was later I realized, idiot, if you just hadn't lost your cool, you could have made a 7 or 8. Not that 78's a big deal, but it's like, what were you doing? Don't be stupid. Don't give up on a shot, So it's just one of those things. I broke 80 plenty of times there after that, but it was just, I just lost my mind. And it's good to have those moments and you realize, well, that was stupid, and you don't do it again.
Yep.
So that was probably my first one was my favorite and my least favorite at the same time.
So do you pick your topics, or are they assigned to you? I mean, you said you're kind of doing a lot of freelance now. So how do you decide kind of what to write about? I mean, I feel like any one story is everyone's story. I mean, and you're like, especially with the morning read, trying to get stuff that you don't see anywhere else. So where does the story creation come from?
Morning read, you're trying to get people interested. So readers are more interested in, I would say, a theme or an opinion, as opposed to, just a feature on some guy. You'd be surprised. I wrote one recently. We have a weekly equipment piece, and I do a lot of them because I like equipment, and not too many other of our contributors are equipment guys. But I wrote one on a product called the Sound Caddy. It's a speaker, but it's shaped like a driver. It looks like a driver you would put in your bag. It's a 460cc head, but the head is a really good, high-quality speaker. You can detach it from the shaft. The shaft has a spike, and you can put the spike in the ground. You can put the shaft on top of the speaker, so like you can take it to the range, set up your tunes, listen to your music, or the head comes off and it's got a little thin spike in the bottom. It fits right in the tee holder in the golf cart tray. You can put that in the golf cart tray. You can take your tunes with you, which a lot of people under the age of 40 like to do. And if you think about it, anybody under the age of 30 in their lifetimes, they've probably never been separated from their music collection. I grew up with 45s and LPs and stuff. Yeah. Now but people now, they've never been separated. So this is great thing for them.
Oh no, it's cutting out. Are you still there? Hope I didn't lose you.
Anyways, the whole concept of music on the golf course. What you thought of this? So it was an interesting mix. So getting back to my point is, we like to have opinion of some kind. So instead of just, we're not going to write a game story on who's leading unless your opinion is well, so-and-so's leading, but here's why he's not going to win. Or, Tiger and Phil are can't miss topics because everybody's invested in them both ways. There's X number of people who love Tiger. There's X number of people who hate him and don't want to read about him anymore because they've read enough. Same with Phil. But yeah, I do whatever I want. Basically, occasionally they'll say, the editor will say, well, here's an idea, why don't you do this? But you just kind of go with the flow and go with something that's going to be a little bit different and hopefully be interesting. So yeah, but you're kind of forced to put yourself in the story more than when I was a sports writer in Milwaukee at the newspaper. I was a reporter. I was more writing the story, writing up a game or writing it for people who didn't know what happened or hadn't seen the game because you couldn't see the game. Back in the old dark ages, when we had to walk 20 miles to school each way in the snow, that's just the way it was. So it's different now. A lot of time, everything instantaneous, spontaneity or whatever. Everything's instantly on TV. You can watch the clips. You already know who won. You've got to tell people why something happened, or it's more like being a movie reviewer. You give, here's what I thought about the movie and why I hated it or loved it or whatever. So that's what you're looking for. But yeah, mostly I just kind of do what I want and I make it up as I go, whatever I feel like doing that day that I think might be interesting, that hopefully somebody else that you're not going to get out of the newspaper or out of the on the internet now. So
I dig that. Now, I'm talking about the speakers. So at Tiburon, we have Shark Experience in our carts. I don't know if you're familiar with Shark Experience. Yeah, the speakers in the carts, like they're built in, Bluetooth, GPS, whole 9 yards. So I'm with you, not being able to be disconnected, and I like listening to music when I play, and I'm a millennial technically, even though I'm on the high end of that, but I do like listening to music, and I listen to a lot of podcasts too. But
I got hooked on that, not hooked on it, but I got exposed to it early because a friend of mine was a sports golf writer in Dallas. When I would be down there covering tournaments, back in those days, we sneak out in the morning and play golf a couple times. Well, back in the mid 80s, he started bringing a boom box along to the course. He'd put it in a cart tray and put on an AM radio station. We'd listen to 60s music or whatever. And he did that a lot because he was at a course where slow play was an issue. So they would let me listen to sports news, and then they'd listen to music. And eventually, after a while, they decided, after 2/3 of the way through a 12-pack, he and his buddies, their singing sounded a lot better. Now they just started bringing it for the music. So he started I think I'm crediting him with inventing music on the golf course. I'm sure everybody knows somebody who did the same thing back in 1989, but it started with him. And then, of course, his boombox kept getting smaller and easier to travel with. And he only had a few occasions where people threatened to punch him out. But yeah, it's like,
well, that's good.
If people like listening to music, if you want people to have fun on the golf course, and people like listening to music, then why wouldn't you let them bring music to the golf course? Yeah. Obviously not put a speaker on top and do a Rodney, but I think it's great. I love having that background music. I'm fine with it.
So you used to write, like you said, of different sports besides golf. How does golf compare, or how was it different writing about basketball and football and other sports? Or is it kind of the same? I mean, it could be the same kind of flow. I mean, you talk about reporting versus now the way that you're writing with golf being a little bit less reporting on what happened. But how do they compare?
Well, the big perk is when you cover, I was in Milwaukee, it's Wisconsin. When you cover golf, anywhere you go, it's supposed to be warm. And you cover football and basketball. I mean, you cover the Packers. It's December. They're 3-10. They got practice. It's 13 degrees. But if you don't go to watch, that's the day the quarterback's going to break his leg. So you have to be there. So there's a lot of the weather's an issue. And travel was terrible. I'd always can't tell you how many flights were delayed. You're in the Midwest in the winter, especially with basketball. There's a snowstorm. A lot of delays back in those days. Now with golf, usually the weather's better. So that's a big difference. In football and in the other sports, a lot of times the guy who lost the game, who blew it or made a mistake, a lot of times he's the story. In golf, if somebody blew it and lost the tournament, like a Jean Van de Velde, well, he would still be the story. But in most cases, he's the story, except somebody also won the tournament. So generally, they're the bigger story of the two. And that guy is always in a happier mood to talk to you than the guy who lost the tournament.
Well, I can't tell you who won that when Van de Velde did that. I have no idea.
That's a good example, but that's a rare one. But when you have to deal with a lot of losses in football. When I've covered the Packers, they're going 4-12 and whatever. In the locker, these guys in the locker room get testy because they think you're writing bad things about them, and their idea of bad reporting is you mentioning that they lost 48-10. That's negative. So there were some testy moments with the Packers and even with the Wisconsin Badgers, but there's just so much. It's not that different. A football game, the problem is there's a football game once a week, and you got to write stories every day during the week of what's practice and features and stuff. There's a lot of, advanced stories, we call it, that you got to fill space just to keep, interest in the team. Whereas golf, there's not as much. You're not really writing as many advanced stories. The tournament's there, and you're writing about the tournament each day, and there's a million things to write about at the tournament. Maybe you want to write about how the course played. Maybe you want to write, boring Joe Jones is leading the tournament, but the guy who was second who shot 67 is in second. Maybe he's the most interesting story that day because his grandmother just died yesterday, and he was thought about pulling out. So there's an infinite number of stories in golf each day when you're writing it. Versus, you go to a Brewers game and a guy hits a game-winning walk-off home run. Well, what's the story going to be? So it's more limiting, and there were probably fewer media at golf. I mean, in general, I don't mean the Masters or the U.S. Open, but you have more leeway and more privacy or whatever the word is. It's easier to get your own original content versus the packed journalism of big events. I covered a couple of Super Bowls and Rose Bowls and it's just miserable. You've seen what a circus the Super Bowls turned into during the week. It wasn't nearly that bad when I covered it in the 80s, but it was still pretty bad. So I'm spoiled. I'd have a hard time going back to be a beat writer in any pro sport because those guys are making so much money, and the media now are a complete nuisance. They just hate them. They did then too, but at least the college kids were nice, and even now the college kids are feeling entitled and. They're swatting flies away. That's the media. They're swatting you away because you're bothering them. So golf, these guys are all responsible for their own PR. So it behooves them, if they're smart, to have good relations with the writers, none of whom are looking to rip them. They're just looking to report what's going on, and really, we're their PR people. They just don't realize it.
So. Your travel schedule. It sounds like you're traveling a little bit less than what you used to maybe now. So what's your travel schedule look like? And is there any chance we're going to see you in Naples this year for the 30th anniversary of the QBE shootout?
Well, the problem now is, I'm effectively a freelancer. So anywhere I go, I'm paying my own way. And I can only get a small fee per story I do with Morning Read. It's morningread.com, folks. Really, I can't. I'm lucky if I can break even to travel. Flying in a rental car and a hotel. I mean, forget it. You're looking at $1,500, $2,000. I mean, it just doesn't add up. So probably not. Going to a couple of majors. I'm probably not going to go to the British Open at Carnoustie, although I'd love to. But you're talking a $1,200 flight. You're talking a $1,800 hotel room for the week. And if you don't get a rental car, you still got to get around. It doesn't make economic sense. I've been to like about 100. I've covered about 120 majors. I mean, so I've been there and done that. Carnoustie would be my least favorite major site on the British rotation. It's a hard course. It's no fun. It's very penal. You hit it in a fairway bunker. I mean, you're wedging out. They're so deep. So it's like it might as well be a water hazard almost. But the tournaments I like, I went to this year. I've gone to. I think I skipped the West Coast this year, but I went to Tampa and Bay Hill. I went to the Masters. I'll go to the U.S. Open. I'll go to Memorial. I'll probably go to Greenbrier. I might go to John Deere. I go to the PGA. I'll go to Firestone. The last year they have that. And I usually go to the last couple FedEx events, the BMW and the Tour Championship. And then in the fall, I like the one in Mississippi. I try to go to that one. They keep changing the name, the sponsor, but I just pick my spots, and wherever I can go and not lose lose money. I'm just dabbling as president of the Golf Writers Association. I feel I should put on a good front and keep showing up and at least make an appearance at some events. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Well, for what it's worth, Tampa's only 2 hours north of Naples. I'm just saying. I mean, if we can convince you to come down here.
Well, it's a great area, and I haven't been down there nearly enough. I've been to Tampa a lot, but I don't get a lot. Without Doral, I kind of missed that one, although the traffic was terrible trying to just get to the course. But Doral was another one I went to almost every year for, 25, 30 years. So that was a good spot. So, yeah, I'd love to, but, somebody needs to. The tournament sponsor to sweeten the – I need a tournament sponsor to pick up some of the tab,
Well, we have the LPGA Tour 3 weeks before the PGA Tour. I'm just saying, maybe you can make it an extended stay, spend some time on the beach, and get either the QBE or the LPGA CME. I mean, who knows?
You're gonna need to talk to the sponsors of either of those tournaments and see if they're gonna, bankroll my trip. Then it could happen.
So, who are some tour players that you like to feature? Anybody that you've kind of befriended over the years, and kind of who do you like to write about?
Well, I've written so much about Tiger. It's hard to write about him when you've written about him that much. But all the guys I really covered heavily in the 80s and 90s when I was at Golf World and it was the Bible. I was kind of the guy on the tour. And when I went to Sports Illustrated, we had more guys, so I kind of lost that niche and more guys on tour. But a lot of the guys who were my buddies that I was close with have moved on to the senior circuit. So I kind of discovered Brandel Chambly. He was a journeyman on the PGA Tour and didn't do much, but he was a hilarious character, a fun guy, great storyteller. And I started writing stories about him, and I got him to – I ghost wrote a bunch of stories by him for Golf World. I mean, I would interview him. I'd sit down and write it. He'd go over it. Usually it was pretty good. We had similar senses of humor. So and it would just be his byline. I wouldn't be mentioned. I did a lot of him. So I was – Paul Azinger is a good friend of mine. We've gone to a couple baseball games. I went over to watch boxing at his house one night in Bradenton. And the guys from that, the guys who were, in their mid-50s now, this younger generation at Sports Illustrated, a lot of times at a major, I was doing a secondary story. So I wasn't following, Tiger around or Jordan Spieth or Phil. I was doing a story on somebody else or doing a story on the fourth hole or something like that. So next thing you know, and we've got fewer issues, next thing you know, these guys have been out here 6 years and I don't really know them and they don't really know me. And I'm at that age where I'm near the finish line. How hard do I want to work to buddy up to Jason Day or Justin Thomas? They all seem like really nice guys. This is maybe the best time in golf we've had. Tiger and Phil Tiger was not very cooperative or friendly. Phil was at times, but he ran hot and cold and didn't tell us a lot of stuff that was, we thought, authentic. These guys now, Jason Day, Jordan Spieth, they come out and spill their guts. They talk all day long. Rory McIlroy does a pretty good job of that, not quite as much as those two. Dustin Johnson's talking's not really his thing, but that's okay. And Justin Thomas is very open about everything. These guys are such a breath of fresh air. I think because of that, the media likes them. They convey that to the public. The public likes them and kind of gets invested in them. And I think that's how golf has to work. You have to be invested in a player or several players to really want to see who's going to win this thing. If you're on there watching a show and, a show being a tournament now because they're all TV shows, you're watching a tournament and it's 7 guys you never heard of them. It's like, well, what do I care if Charlie Hoffman beats J.B. Holmes? You need to be invested. You have to have that interest. And if you had gambling, if you had a bet, you'd be rooting for your bet. Without that, you need a connection to the players. And the media is one way to get that. You got TV building these guys' images too, but most of Tiger's original image all came from his commercials. And he didn't convey an image or a good image to the media at all and over the years. And that's a whole other issue, but so a lot of my Jeff Sluman, Brad Fax, and Billy Andrade, the guys Mark Calcavecchia, the guys I was closest to have all, moved on to Scott McCarron, who played in the Players Championship because he won the senior players. He was another guy who was a real good guy. I knew him pretty well, and he was a guy you needed a tape recorder for because he talked so fast. He couldn't possibly take. He talked at super speed. So yeah, those are the guys. They've all moved on. I'm not. I mean, I've talked to these younger guys, but I don't know if Jordan Spieth could pick me out of a crowd. Pretty sure Tiger knows who I am, but he's in his 40s. He's not young anymore. Justin Thomas, I just did something with him at the Masters. At the Golf Writers Dinner. I gave him the Player of the Year award, so he might still know who I am. But yeah, these guys are young. They got other things to do.
Well, you're making an impression on me, and I knew who you were before we even met, so I'm excited.
But it's tough because, at one point we had weekly golf magazines, we had newspapers that, and even Sports Illustrated. Each week, Golf World and Sports Illustrated, copies of those would be deposited in the media rooms and in the player locker rooms. So when you wrote a story for Golf World, I was writing all the stories, for 10 years there. You knew the players are going to see it every week. So, you wanted to make sure it wasn't a crummy story. And the facts better be right.
Now, they recently incorporated walk-up music. I still don't know how I feel,
but it was in the locker room. The players kind of lost track of who the writers are. I mean, I've heard guys recently say, we don't really know who you guys are anymore. We don't have relationships because a lot of the magazines have gone out of business. A lot of us don't get sent out that often, or we don't write stories about them individually. The players only know 2 or 3 guys now, and for that, they're less interested in talking and being open. It's a completely different landscape because the golf business and the print business are both in depressions they're never coming out of. It's a different world.
So they recently introduced walk-up music, and I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. Talking about music on the golf course, but walk-up music is a little bit different. So what are your thoughts on walk-up music, and what is your walk-up song?
I think walk-up music, you need a place to walk up. Because I think in the case of New Orleans, I think it was more of a stand there music. They're already there. If you have a big, like at a Ryder Cup, that might work when there's a big crowd at the first tee. You go to a lot of tournaments. These guys are teeing off 1 and 10 at 7 a.m. Here's Charlie Hoffman. I hate to pick him. Here's Charlie Hoffman and 2 guys teeing off in the 10th tee at 7 a.m. at Innisbrook. Who's there? Is there 5 people there? It really matter what your walk-up music is. And by the way, you don't walk up. They're already on the tee. They're just standing there. And it was an interesting idea. I think it'd be much more effective, like for pro wrestling, or where you walk down a big aisle and come into the ring. I just don't think in golf it's designed for that. And honestly, there's so much music content out there that how many people, you get 100 people, how many people know any given song? I mean, it might only be 20 or 10. So your walk-up song is, Grumpy Cat by Joe Slobodnik. Well, who even knows the significance? They play a clip of 10 seconds. Who even knows what that means? What's this? It's just like a selfie, only the music.
I like that. It's like a music selfie. That's good.
Like you showing off. If I'm going to have a walk-up thing, it's going to have to be something really unusual or stupid. I'm thinking, I tweeted this. I said, I'm going with Beethoven's Unfinished Symphony. And some guy tweeted me, it's like, Beethoven never wrote the Unfinished Symphony. It's like, yeah, I know, that was the joke. A, it's unfinished, so it was never finished. And B, it was Franz Schubert, not Beethoven, which this guy thought, so there were like 2 inside jokes there. But the point is, who has a classic walk? I mean, it's just, I was mocking the whole thing. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the Unfinished Symphony, and you can pick between Schubert or Beethoven which one you want.
That's awesome. Now, before we went live, I didn't tell you that the half an hour that we usually allot for the show was going to fly by. That was 45 minutes ago, and we're only halfway there.
Oh, my gosh.
I could literally talk to you all day, and I hope you can make it down to Naples sometime. If not for the LPGA or PGA Tour event, just come down and we'll play some golf, because I am loving this conversation. But before we get to the end of the hashtag Wednesday Match Play presented by Eat Sleep Golf, let's have some fun. We've been having some fun, but we've been talking business. Let's go have some fun and talk about you and golf and the back nine. You ready for your back nine? What is your favorite major championship on the PGA Tour?
The British Open. Cool courses, real golf fans who know golf, and the best, the most unique style of golf you're going to see. I love the bad weather.
Yeah, I don't normally play when it's like anything but 85 and sunny. And a couple of weeks ago, I was on the golf course and it started raining, and I was like, let's just keep going. And it rained harder, and the three guys I was with quit, and I finished, and I was drenched, but it was fun. Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
It was the elements.
What is your favorite golf movie? Sometimes the answer is expected, be it Caddyshack or The Legend of Bagger Vance. But I'm curious, and nobody's ever answered The Legend of Bagger Vance, by the way. So, what's your favorite golf movie?
There's no good golf movies. I hated The Greatest Game of All because they changed history. Francis We Met won in a playoff like by 5 shots. In the movie, he makes a putt to win. How do you get that wrong? So I hate that one. I don't like it. There's no good golf movies. Caddyshack's funny, but it's not a very good movie, but it's funny. I'm just going to go with my favorite golf scene, and that's from Pat and Mike, where Katharine Hepburn is this Tom girl, which is what they call him at the time. She's a great athlete, and she and her husband or her boyfriend are playing with his boss and his wife, and she's told that we have to make sure we lose the match, so she had to dumb down her game and play lousy. But you had some great authentic scenes in that movie. I think Babe Zaharias made a cameo. You saw Riviera in the 1930s. And at the end, after she's the woman, the boss's wife says, "Oh, dear, if you practice, maybe you can get better." Katharine Hepburn has like 8 balls teed up on the range, and she just steps up and whacks like 8 bullets down the range, and the woman's standing here with her jaw dropping, going, "Huh?" So all the golf scenes from Pat and Mike are my favorite golf movie, but all the other golf movies are seriously flawed.
So I never had a bucket list until I played the old course. So now I'm just looking for excuses to write things on this bucket list. What's on yours? What's something you're looking forward to knocking off in the next year or so?
Boy, that's a good one. I do have a list of all the courses I've played, and I do it by state. I'd sort of like to play golf in every state, but I'm not dying. But I've played in like 43 states, so I don't really have you just don't accidentally wind up in Wyoming to play there. So I guess I could play at 50 states, but I'm not pushing it. Most of the great courses I played, I've never played Sand Hills in Nebraska. The new course in Wisconsin, Mammoth Dunes up in Sand Valley, is supposed to be spectacular. Those are 2 I'd like to play. Never played Chicago Golf Club, which you can't just walk into. I gather you pretty much have to be born on the grounds to ever play there. So there would be a couple.
That's cool. At least they're golf related, so I dig that.
Yeah.
Now you're a writer. I assume you're a fast typer, right? How many words per minute can you type?
I was the Wisconsin State High School champion typist. And we went down to a car. We drove down an hour and a half to Madison for me and like 5 girls and the typing teacher. And as I recall, I was the only guy, with about 500 girls there in the typing thing. And I don't know what happened. I won. So I think I could probably back then. I mean, that was with electric typewriters. This was not, if you had a manual typewriter, you couldn't go any fast at all. But I mean, I was maybe 75, 80 words at my best. And keyboards are different now, so I'm not that good. But if you walk through a media room, golf center, you would be surprised to see vast majority of sports writers and golf writers. They're all one-finger hut and peck guys. I can take dictation and type, and I can do it. So I would say I'm the best typist in golf writing.
Ooh, I like that. That could be, put that on your resume. Best typist.
I should. I don't have it on there. That's a good point.
Now, that's actually a really good segue to my next question, because this whole time I thought you were a golf writer, but it seems like when you first got your job at Sports Illustrated, you were a golf waiter. Tell me a little bit more about what happened there.
They ordered business cards. The secretary ordered them for me, and I was a senior writer. And when I got them, the card said, she made a typo, and it came out senior waiter, because, spell check doesn't catch that. And I was mad for 10 seconds, and then I thought, this is great. I'm going to use them, and I did. And honestly, it was a great conversation starter. And apparently, as you found out, the story has lived on 30 years later. People still see me and go, hey, senior waiter. So I was going to have some of my own cards made with that on it, but, it's not the same if you do it on purpose, so I didn't.
That's still funny. That's a cool story, and that's something that you'll have forever.
I like it. I still got some of those cards saved.
Now, I'm a blogger. I write a ton of content. I'm as much as you write about golf, I'm pretty much writing about dance music, but I've got a lot of content on my blog that's about a ton of different topics. I would love a guest blog post from you. Is that something you'd ever be willing to contribute to my .com?
How many words?
I don't know, 200, 400, 5 pages?
I was thinking
I would set no restrictions.
Yeah. Okay. I was thinking 11 words. So absolutely yes.
That would be funny. Actually, yeah. I don't know what you would say in 11 words, but now I'm curious to find out.
You have to be concise. Maybe no verbs.
So you've played a lot of golf. You just said you've played in 43 states. What's the best course and the worst course you've played in your years?
Yeah, best is pretty hard to define. It'd be hard to argue against Pebble Beach or Augusta National because they're so iconic and you can't beat ocean views. I love playing bad courses. I mean, I think bad courses are more fun than anything. There's been a lot of them, but there's one if you drive from Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida, south to the World Golf Hall of Fame, there's a 9-hole course. It's like an executive. I drove by it for years, never stopped. I think I hit balls there once. When I finally played it last year, they built a whole city around this in this area now. It used to be a 2-lane road. Now there's a subdivision, a school, a city. I think the guy's just keeping the land warm to sell it for housing. So he's not really doing much, but I think it's just called Palm Valley Golf Club. And it was about as bad as you can get. There was also one in South Carolina when I drove from Augusta down to Hilton Head the next week. It was off the beaten path. It was near a trailer park, and it was just called Jim and Lily's Golf Course, which I thought was the greatest golf course name ever. And
that is fantastic.
About what you would expect. It was like barely mowed grass in a field of Bermuda, and but I don't believe that's there anymore.
That would be a fun place to play. That'd be a good summer trip.
It was great. It was so bad, it was great. I love courses that are so bad, they're great.
Now, I ask this question in every episode of this show, and I'm very curious how you're going to answer it because I'm self-admittedly Tiger's biggest fan. I mean, he sits all around me, and I drive a red and black car because he wears red on Sunday, and I'm not kidding. I actually do. Now, do you think he breaks Jack's record? Why or why not?
No, he still needs, he needs 5 to break the record. And not only, I don't know how many guys in their 40s have won more than one major. I mean, to win 5, you're going to basically need Nick Faldo's career in your 40s after you've had back fusion. Also, Tiger's at that age where all of a sudden your putting stroke isn't there anymore. You get the yips, you get flinches. I think we're starting to see that. It'd be great if he could at least make a run. If he wins one more, the hysteria will be beyond belief. But I don't know if his body physically can hold up, however long it would take. And the competition is a lot tougher. I mean, when he was hitting at 330, 320, he was the only guy doing it. Now there's, I was looking at stats the other day. I think there's 59 or 60 guys who average 300 or better on the tour. So in this big distance edge he had in 97 at the Masters, he didn't have that. And now if his putting's not going to be great like it was, he's just kind of a guy back in the pack. That guy's going to win 5 more majors against these fearless young guys. I don't think he'll do it. But Tiger's the one guy. He's like Jack. The rules don't apply to him. I wouldn't rule it out, but if I had to bet all my money, I'd say no. He's not gonna get anywhere near Jack's record.
That's a good answer. I like that. I think that you didn't say no, and I hate it when people.
I kind of did say no, but
in a roundabout way.
I'd like to see it, but I don't. It'd be a miracle. It'll be a miracle, but he's Tiger. That's
Bingo. He's Tiger. The rules don't apply to him, like you said. He's playing it, and I think if he stays healthy, I honestly think he can get it done.
When has he stayed healthy for in the last 18 years?
That's a big if. But I will also say, if he gets hurt one more time, it's over. There's no more comebacks. He's done that too many times, and I was actually to the point that I thought it was not going to happen this time, and he's back. And
I didn't think he'd even play golf again, competitively or even recreate. I didn't think he'd play at all. So I'm slightly wrong about that.
And our time together has almost come to an end. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. Again, this is a monumental episode of the hashtag Wednesday Match Play presented by Eat Sleep Golf, because I think for the first time in the history of the show, we've had a father-son, not only as the first time we've had that, but in the same season. And that's pretty cool. Your boy teed you up, pun intended, and I think that based on the fact that we've been talking for almost an hour, that doubles the time that we normally spend on this show.
That can really hurt the numbers. I don't know. So where do I send the invoice to get paid for this?
Send that to Scott Stevens or your son, because it's his fault that you're on this show, because he was the one that's like, yeah, get my dad on. But before I let you go, I got one more question. What's next? You're talking about all these things that you're doing, writing, traveling, playing golf courses. What's next for Gary Van Sickle?
I've got a 2-year-old grandson I need to play with soon. So that's probably the most fun thing I have going. His name's Harvey. It's Mike's son, and 2-year-olds are the best. So I saw a T-shirt that said, if I'd known grandkids were this much fun, I would have had them first. It's definitely true.
That is awesome. Well, Gary, I look forward to staying connected with you on Twitter. This episode of the hashtag Wednesday Match Play will live on YouTube forever, so hopefully you didn't say anything too embarrassing. It's going to be shared to Facebook and Twitter and Google Plus and anywhere you want to find it. It's very easy to do so. This is also a podcast on iTunes and Google Play, so any way you want to obtain this content, it's available. Thank you again for coming on the show. I look forward to learning more and hopefully meeting you and playing some golf with you in the near future. And as always, on the hashtag Wednesday Match Plays, you have to remember to eat, sleep, golf.